Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm Juan Ayala, and welcome to Actors with Issues. Each week, we bring you interviews with actors from across TV, film, and Broadway, taking many deep dives into their careers and getting into the successes, the struggles, and of course, the issues that they face as actors. That's enough about us. Let's dive into the episode. Today's guest is an actor from stage and screen, currently starring in the new Off-Broadway play Patience. It's Justiin Davis. Justin, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Of course. So before we dive into Patience and everything, we're always get started with a quick game called Getting to Know You. It's not timed. We used to time it, but that always stressed people out. So, but it's just a rapid fire round of questions, starting with coffee or tea,
Oh, tea, Yorkshire tea, big tea fan.
film or television,
Oh, television. You can explore more story on a longer form. Yeah.
mm. Drama or comedy,
Oh, this is a tough one. Ooh, I would say to go with longer form. I'm gonna say drama. Drama.
stage acting or screen acting,
This is another toughie. Right now because of patience, I'll say stage.
day off. Are you watching a horror movie or a rom com?
On a day off, to me, I think there's always room for both of them. So I'll probably start the day with a rom-com and then end it in a scary movie or a horror. Yeah.
What is the last show you binge watched?
Oh, Stranger Things. And, of course, shameless plug, but I had to get through this season of The Boys as well.
What was your first non-acting job?
My first non-acting job was when I was 16. I worked at Build-A-Bear, and I was a bear builder, and they let me be the mascot, so I was Bear Me for like a season or two.
What's a movie that never fails to make you laugh?
Oh, Sister Act 2. Sister Act 2.
Good choice. And a movie that never fails to make you cry.
The Notebook.
Good choice.
Right? Right?
Yeah. If you could guest star on any TV show, which would you choose?
I would choose Abbott Elementary.
Another good choice. And lastly, describe your most memorable audition in 3 words. And memorable can mean good or bad. So that's up to you.
Most memorable audition: terrifying, exhilarating, and mind blowing. Yeah. And what was the other? I didn't even catch it. It kind of cut out at the end.
Oh no, it was just like I said, memorable audition. So memorable
Oh,
can mean good or bad, because sometimes people
yeah.
pull from
So
either side.
yeah, terrifying, exhilarating. I don't even know if I said exhilarating, but exhilarating was another way I felt, and mind blowing. Still mind blowing. Yeah.
So I'm curious, with our show, we've been doing this for just over 2 years now, and we've heard so many different stories, sort of like actor origin stories. So what
Yeah.
was that aha moment for you? That moment where everything just clicked and you're like, this is what I want to do for a living.
That happened for me when I was really, really young. Even before then, I was about 3 years old, and my aunt, she was almost like our stage mom, me and my cousin, because she would take my cousin to dance classes, and then she would take me to like different acting auditions and stuff like that at just three. And so at three, I said, I want to be on TV, and she always reminds me of that. And then I got really shy for years.
Mm.
I didn't want to walk across the stage. I was really stage fright, and I could remember stuff, but I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm nervous. I don't really like meeting new people. And then at about like 7 or 8, I don't know what it was, but I said, I think I want to do this as a career. I talk about it even till to this day. Sister Act 2 being one of those things that I think was the foundation of, the artistic community. Just seeing, I went to a Catholic school, and
Mm.
I grew up in a city, so it was like seeing those kids in the Catholic school, going through the motions of life, even though it might have been like a high school at the time, and I was like 7 or 8. I was like, I can see myself in those kids. I see myself in just the magic of movie making. I've always loved Whoopi Goldberg ever since I was a kid, and probably even younger than 7 and 8.
Mm.
Jumpin' Jack Flash, stuff like that. I've always loved that. But once I turned 7 and 8, saw that, I was in Catholic school, and I was bit by the bug, and I said I wanted to do this as a career. And I think the first stage show that I did was Charlotte's Web, or
Mm.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We did both of those around like 7th and 8th grade. So then by that time, I eventually went on to PPAS, and it's been something that was a foundation ever since a kid. And yeah, I would say about 7 or 8, I told my aunts and family I wanted to do this as a career, and
Mm.
I've been going ever since.
And I'm sure that there have been sort of, for everyone, there's always like bumps in the road along
Yes.
trying to get to where we want to be. So, does anything in particular stick out as a particular obstacle that
Mm.
came your way that you had to sort of overcome?
Um, well, yes and no. So there are always multiple obstacles and hurdles I think that come up in any career, especially when you're trying to do one that deals with vulnerability and passions across the spectrum of artistry. So when I was younger, I think it was, I wanted to explore different artistic outlets, like stage and like film and TV, but my family wanted me to stick to commercials and stuff that, you could kind of do that in a day and it didn't necessarily pull you out of school or pull you away from your studies and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So even though I was going to PPAS, Professional Performing Arts School, and you can sort of like be on location and stuff like that. And for, a few times I was on location and filming while in high school. But it wasn't until after then that I was really able to branch out and explore some of those other sort of facets of the industry.
Mhm.
But then, of course, once you get into that, it becomes, you realize that you're not the only one out there. And I always say that this is an industry sometimes that it's more difficult before it becomes easier, if it ever becomes easier. So it's about really sticking to it and trusting that you have a voice and that your voice matters and that that you have something to say that needs to be heard. And if this is a passion of yours, then always keep pursuing it. I,
Mhm.
for myself, I face different hurdles. I say that this career is almost like a roller coaster. It goes up and down, and there are peaks and valleys all the time. And I've seen the successes of things that I've done in the past, and I've seen, the dips as well, but you always know that if a dip happens, that the only way to go after that is right back up. So you stick to that, you stick to your guns and to your process and you trust that the journey, I don't want a microwavable career. I want something of substance and a legacy over time,
Mhm.
So it's something that you take time with and you enjoy the process and you enjoy the journey because everything and every step is there's something else that you can learn along the way.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
the microwavable career. I've never heard that before. That's great. You want like that
Yeah,
slow
no, I don't want a
roast
hot pocket. Yeah,
right,
I don't want no hot pocket. Shoot, give me a Sunday roast. Let it take time.
right.
That's what I think that's what is the most important thing to remember too, especially with things like social media that come up nowadays. Everything is so instant. It's Instagram and
Yeah.
instant gratification almost. And so, you know, I don't want to be around for just a moment. I enjoy the process. I enjoy learning and growing with people over time and being introduced to different ideas and things that I hadn't learned before. And especially when you're in this industry and you're pursuing something like acting, one of the only things that helps you build characters is life experience. So life experience only comes with time and a journey and accepting that a journey takes you out of your comfort zone and stretches you in different ways. But a part of that all goes back to what you're trying to craft, if that's what you're trying to craft. And I think it's very important to stick to that and enjoy that process.
And so I'd like to chat about Patience, which is the play that you're currently in rehearsals for. Um,
Yes.
Previews and opening are just a few weeks away, and it's described
Yes.
as a meditation on Black excellence. Next chapters in playing a very long game alone. Before we talk about sort of the rehearsal process, how early did you get involved? Was it sort of like a traditional audition, where did you do readings of it beforehand, or like when did you sort of enter
So
the play?
I know that they had workshops and had been looking at this work for a while. Second Stage and Johnny G. Lloyd, who was the writer of it, had been working together closely. And even from the first read through that we had, first day of rehearsal, they'd said that this is one of the projects that they really held a close esteem to, and they held it close to their heart. And even from when I read it the first time, it jumped off the page to me. I was brought into the process after the workshop once they, finally started to audition people for it. And the first thing that I had to do, because it was done, I think for us, it's like I won't say the tail end of COVID, but the process or where we are now is a much different place than where we were, a year and a half ago or a year ago, even when it comes down to auditioning in the industry. So in New York City, though, what we're still doing is still auditioning by self-tape for initial tapes. And so one of the first tapes that I did was just, one of the monologues in the show. And then after that, it went on to the callback process. And then you're meeting with the creatives and getting to work some, with someone else and and play with the dialogue. And then there was a chemistry read in the end after that second callback. So it was more of a traditional sort of audition process that we ended up going through. Like I said, it kind of felt like it almost did before COVID,
Mhm.
but the first audition process or first part of the audition was a self tape, and like I said as well, for lack of a better phrase, it jumped off the page to me when I first read it, and there was something just so visceral about the language and about the story, about the lives of each five of these characters, and the journey that they all take together, and how how I've been able to, this is speaking from my character standpoint of Daniel, and how I've been able to, move as a world champion of solitaire, and really how all of these lives have been such an, almost like Crash the film, have been an intricate part of the journey of this story, and the journey of each other. It's such a beautiful story, and I can't wait for everyone to come see. If you're available, I would say come see.
And during the rehearsal process and exploring the text over the last few weeks, what has been sort of the most eye-opening experience of it all?
Just the, in film and TV, I always say that there's such a difference because you're within that time, you're working sometimes just with one other person, or you don't get to see the full world. And what's been beautiful about theater again is being able to be in the room and get that full visceral sort of experience with artists of this caliber. It's a true gift to be able to jump back into theater after working on film and TV for, I think, for such a long time, and being able to hold down both sides of it has been something that I've always dreamed of. But this room, the rehearsal room, the theater, has always been just a sacred space, a dojo, and almost like a meditative arena, if you will. And being able to learn off of these other artists, work with the writer and director so closely, and really feel out all the parts of theater again. I was trained in theater, so to be back into this immersive experience is, it's a gift. Like I said, film and TV have such a different, I guess, process to it. The
Mhm.
rehearsal sometimes is one time through with the blocking, and then you invite all the teams in to sort of like light it up and dress it and do all the works, and then you're shooting. Sometimes you're shooting one scene for 16 hours, on a very long day, depending on how many pages that scene is, but and how intricate everything is. But with stage, you're really able to live out through the process in the life of someone and create their story arc in a much more truncated amount of time. And you know, you're living in real time, and there's no cut, there's no going back, there's no any of that. There's just go, and it's so amazing to be able to explore the process of go with a team like this.
So, because you've been sort of doing theater and television and film for so long, each of them, what would you say are sort of like the biggest differences? Because I've also sort of dabbled in TV while also doing lots of theater, um,
Hmm.
and sort of like what you say exactly about rehearsals is very true. Like you get that one read through, and then the teams come in,
Yeah,
and then that's kind of it. Every take that is not on you is your other rehearsal.
yeah.
So, you've worked on such great shows like The Boys and Boardwalk Empire and a ton of others. So, what would you say is like sort of like the biggest differences between the creative process of stage versus screen?
Yeah, I would say outside of just the rehearsal is getting to explore an entire life. In in the film and TV world, not only is it a, like I said, a truncated amount of time that you rehearse, but you're also rehearsing and shooting and filming everything completely sporadic and a lot of times out of order.
Mm.
And so you don't really get to see the full arc of a character. You sort of have to plan ahead and be able to pull it back in order to know how to really puzzle piece the pieces of film and television together, because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's a bunch of still very small reels that are put on something and run together to tell a story. And it's about you understanding what part of that story you're at and going forward and coming back. But with theater, one of the beautiful things is that, in this process, we were able to rehearse just in the trajectory of the show, from beginning to end. Is how we started out when it came to table work, how it started out when we came to staging it, and how we're moving into run throughs and stumble throughs and all of those parts of the process. And that's what's great. And the beauty of that is now you can create sort of the masterpiece of the through arc throughout the entire show. Whereas with film and television, you just you never know where the through arc is sometimes. Of course, the story tells you, but you're not able to build up to that. You're just at that place. What's beautiful is being able to create this through arc in this story with this play and with, you know, theater in general. That's one of the most magnificent, excuse me, magnificent things about theater is I like I said, I enjoy the process and the journey, and being able to create that journey is probably the biggest difference.
And I'm curious, looking ahead, what's on the bucket list for you? Are there any like dream franchises you want to work on, genres, co-stars, dabbling into writing and directing? Like, what do
Yeah,
you want to do?
yeah, there's always so much. I mean, I think once I get a taste of anything when it comes to this industry and this career, you know, it's almost like getting a tattoo. You get your first tattoo, and you want to go back for the next one probably less than an hour later.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to dabble in writing and producing and directing as well. That's, you know, I took an undergrad directing course years ago now, but I think it's important for actors to understand directors and vice versa. And what better way than to step behind that, you know, step behind the camera, throw on that, you know, the director hat, and really understand exactly what a director is looking for, their eye, and, you know, a different lens into the artistry and the work, you know. And same thing when it comes to writing and producing. I would love to be able to write and produce one day, and it's those are some of the things at the top of my list. But when it comes down to different franchises, there are a bunch of franchises, a bunch of just different shows that I would love to guest in, and, you know, even walk on for, and maybe even recur, or you know, or be around for a while and be a regular on. That list, I think, somehow gets longer every season because there's, like I said, one of the dream places right now would be Abbott Elementary. You know, there were new things and new forms of life that we're seeing now, and that's what's beautiful about film, TV, and theater is that there's so many different voices that are coming to the forefront now. That, you know, like I said, that list gets longer every day. There's something new. But I would of course love to dabble in the DC world and the Marvel world. You know, someone a few weeks ago during press and everything for the boys, they asked me what superhero I would love to be, and, you know, I said Spike, you know, Storm's nephew, because nobody's sort of claimed him yet. There's, you know, nobody's been him yet. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different things, but I'm always open to whatever comes across the table, and whatever continues to, you know, build and and uh and expand the artistry is the rooms that I would love to be in, and those are the conversations I would love to have. So if they want to talk to me, I would love to talk to them as well, whoever they are.
Right. Kevin Feige, you know, whoever it is.
Right, exactly.
So before we go, we always end with a another sort of it's a non-rapid fire game called Now That We Know You. So
Okay.
firstly, fill in the blank. If I weren't working in the arts, I'd be.
If I weren't working in the arts, I would be, oh gosh. Well, I love just different arts. So I'd probably do something really like chill, and like I'd probably do pottery and painting or something like that. Very relaxed.
Mm. What role have you had the most fun playing?
What role have I had the most fun playing? I had so much fun working on the Equalizer with Queen Latifah and just that whole CBS team. I'd been on the network a couple times, and so being able to work on it in this way, you know, being given the action, being given the suspense, and you know, and being able to play with the Queen, that was so much fun. And literally, it was the day after the boys, and some people would think it was the boys because of the explosions, but really
Mhm.
that entire sort of like month period was some of the most exciting work that I've ever done in my life. But Queen Latifah is Queen Latifah.
Yeah, the legend.
Legend.
What is the best advice you ever gotten?
To trust yourself and trust that you're enough. You know, there's a lot of this industry and a lot of things that happen in life that we will end up turning the camera back at us, or, you know, looking back in the mirror and saying, well, what's wrong with me? What don't I have? And what's interesting, and, you know, I just spoke about this sort of idea and concept with someone a few weeks ago, you know, is so many times we look to be something different. You know, we look to be the best. We look to be just something other than who we are in the moment.
Mm.
And the most beautiful thing that you experience is acceptance of yourself, not just from others, but of yourself. And, you know, we try to be something else so many different times, but what the world wants is who we are right now, you know, especially when it comes down to acting. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've realized is, you know, don't try to be that actor that, you know, you think you see, or put on that, you know, that voice, you know.
Yeah.
The reason why you got hired, the reason why you were brought in, the reason why that agent wanted you in the first place is because of you. It's because you were exactly who you are in this moment. So what's the point in trying to be something else?
Right.
Be you. That's the biggest thing. Be you and trust that you are enough, because knowing that it'll take you light years.
Yeah. And similarly, what's the worst advice that you've ever gotten? I know we try and forget all the bad advice.
I won't say the worst. So it wasn't the worst advice, but I know. So when you're working in very close quarters, it wasn't the worst advice, but I'll say something that you probably shouldn't do. Don't eat the chili right before you're working like 2-person intimate scenes. It doesn't necessarily, you know, you can wait until after. So that's probably the best advice, is probably don't eat the chili right before, you know, you're in a 2-person scene, 2-person close-up scene. But yeah, it's you live and you learn, you know. So also just no spatial awareness and that, you know, I ate the chili once and I'll never do it again. So.
And lastly, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
10 words or less. I don't want to use all 10. I would try to masterfully put it together. Always believe that every room is meant for you, period. That's 10.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. If anyone wants to find you on Instagram or anywhere on social media, where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at official Justin Davis, and I'm also on Cameo, Justin Davis. See you guys there.
Awesome. And folks, as always, you can find us on Instagram at Actors with Issues. Give me a follow at Juan Ayala Official, and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Actors with Issues podcast for new episodes every Monday. And don't miss Justin Davis in Patience in previews August 2nd and officially opening August 16th at the McGinn Cazale Theatre in New York City.
I actually got to tell you, we're going to do August 3rd. We're adjusting to August 3rd, and we will be there August 3rd through the 28th. So come uptown and see us, because we can't wait to see you guys too.
Awesome. And as always, I'm Juan Ayala. This is Actors with Issues, and we'll see you next week.